Unto thee, make haste unto me, give ear unto my voice when I cry unto thee. That is the New King James Version, but can I give you the BLE version that's going to come out soon? Just pray for me when I release it. It will sound like this, Psalm 141 and 1. When God checked his voicemail, my voice message was, Lord, I'm calling you. Call me back as soon as possible. Oh, this is Lance. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye. Whenever I say hurry up, it's always about a sense of urgency. It's always about time. Hurry up. We're going to be late. I say that almost every Sunday morning. Hurry up. Time is running out. I say that to myself in the restroom and looking at the mirror. You gotta hurry up. You're going to be late. You're not going to make it on time. We have to hurry to get there. We say those things, and typically there's a crunch time or a deadline. If we don't hurry up, there might be something we'll miss out on or not catch or be denied from. And some folk, I don't care how much you say hurry up, they have one speed, and that's slow, and that's that for them. You have to tell them before time. You have to tell them before time that the time is starting before the time that it's supposed to start. If the program is for 6:30, you have to tell them it's for 6 o'clock. I know that you just told that lie because you did before. You have to ask God for forgiveness. But anyway, you want to be there on time. Then there's some people who are always in a hurry. They will leave you. They're always flying on the interstate. Matter of fact, you had to pray for forgiveness because you've probably been in line for an exit, and here comes that one car from way back in the back to try to cut in front of you because they're in a hurry. You have to say, Lord, forgive me for what I'm about to say. They are speed walkers that speed walk to every place and space. But it's one thing when you can control the hurry or the delay. But it's another thing when you can't do anything until the one who has what you need shows up with it. And time is running out. What a powerful psalm, this powerful message of scripture. Lord, I cry unto thee. At some point and at some time, we all have cried and cried out to the Lord. A cry of help, or maybe a cry of desperation, or a cry of needing support, a cry that you need some backup, a cry you need some strength, a cry that you need some patience, a cry, a need for grace and mercy. And most of us need that every day. Lord, I cry unto thee, but the key clause of the passage is make haste unto me. Hurry, urgently. Come on, Lord. As the New Testament was unfolding, the Christian thought, there was a simultaneous thought called Hellenism. And there's a Greek influence on the world and culture and spiritual philosophy and theology. It was called Hellenism. It was a Greek thought. Now, Alexander the Great invaded areas of Hebrew culture, and they were taken over by the Greek culture. Teachings of Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle became prevalent even in Africa and Egypt area. During the time of Alexander the Great, a new perspective on God came about. God was presented from a Greek perspective as being permanent, being one who primarily is unchanging and free from emotion and the suffering of God's creation. Very much like the Greek statues of those of Poseidon and Hera and of Zeus. Stoic, stationary, cold as the statues they created. During this process and this time, God was called the unmoved mover. God was called the unmoved mover. God was a God who was static, primarily free from emotions, free from suffering, free from pain from God's people. This concept is very present even in current day. Some feel God does not care. God is stoic. God is not feeling our pain. And a man by the name of Alfred North Whitehead came about talking about a process and a reality, this which basically is that we are all becoming or we're being. We're always becoming or we are always being. And God has always been what we need God to become. It's just that we did not know that until we had a situation that God needed to be that for us. So then there are situations whereby we get revelation of God, and it's called circumstances like Jehovah Jireh. Jehovah, which means I am that I am, or I am the one who is. And then a circumstance comes up where you need God to provide, and he becomes Jehovah Jireh. He becomes your provider. There's times that you need healing, and he becomes Jehovah Rapha. And there's times that you need him to be your banner and go before you, and he becomes Jehovah Nisi. And there's sometimes that you need him to be your sanctifier, and he becomes Jehovah Makadish. And sometimes you need him to be your shepherd, and he becomes Jehovah Rapha. And sometimes you need him to be your peace, and he becomes Jehovah Shalom. And sometimes you need him to be present, and he becomes Jehovah Shammah. Sometimes you need him to be your savior, and he's Jehovah Yasha. He is Jehovah. And these are only the definitions and the attributes that the Hebrews gave God. Now, if the Hebrews gave him all of that in the past, what can you give him right now in the present? What name can you call him? What name do you need him to be for you? That's why there's no argument. Because you can see the rotation and the movement of God becoming some things that God has always been. It's just revealed to us. That's why there should be no issue with God in evolution. God caused it to start, to form, and made things to be, and the capability with them to evolve. That's why we are the way we are. We're adapting to our circumstances. We evolve. God made us. That's why you can handle what you go through, because once you go through it, you come out changed and different. The more you understand about God, you know that you can change to deal with the next circumstance. So Alfred North Whitehead, he argued against the static view of God. He taught the reality was a process. Becoming a process. Everything that exists is called entity or occasion. Whitehead would call us an entity, and each entity has its own free will to carry out its purpose if it desires. But each entity is persuaded by God, who's the ultimate persuader. Whitehead says, we are all entities who have the ability to be persuaded by God, the ultimate persuader. What is interesting about Whitehead's thought is that even God is an entity likened unto you, except God has imperishability upon God's essence. Simply meaning God cannot perish, God cannot die, God exists from everlasting to everlasting. Whitehead goes against this permanent and static view of God that the Greeks presented as an unmoved mover. The Greek thought, he takes a step further. He says that not only is God an entity, but the ultimate persuader. Whitehead says, who God is, he can persuade you to do whatever God wants you to do, but God has the ability to be persuaded. Oh man. Greek thought is that God is the unmoved mover, free from suffering from God's people. Whitehead says God is the persuader that can persuade, but persuade us. But while God is persuading, God can also be persuaded by people. Ultimately, he persuades. God Almighty. This sounds like great philosophical talk, but it's more and powerful because Greek understanding the unmoved mover says that God is stoic and staid and God is static right there. But Whitehead discovers God as a persuader and you as one who has the ability to persuade God. Look at your neighbor and tell him, say, neighbor, I didn't know you had so much pull. God is the unmover as a result of God's essence of who God is. But Whitehead argued that God can be persuaded based on what God does. That's good preaching right there. We cannot persuade who God is, but we can persuade what God does. What Whitehead is suggesting is that you and I have the power to persuade and move the unmoved mover. That you and I have influence and persuasion power with God. God who persuades can be persuaded by us. So God is not just somewhere off in the distance, far removed from the suffering and emotions of people, but God is not a God that does not have a connectivity with God's people. While God is transcendent away from us, God is always immanent, which means God is among us. God is transcendent, which means he sits high, but he's immanent means he looks low. God is transcendent because he's up there in the stratosphere, but God is immanent because while he's up there on the throne, his eye is on the sparrow, and I know that he watches over me. Do I have a witness in here? You can take courage and consolation in the fact that God watches over you. Our persuasion has power. Our persuasion power is so awesome that we can move God. Not only can we move God, but according to Whitehead and the psalmist David, we have the ability to place time limits on when we can ask God to move. There comes a time where in each life where the persuader can be persuaded by those he persuades. Oh, that's powerful. Thank you, Holy Ghost. There comes a time in each life where the persuader can be persuaded by those he persuades. Thank you, Holy Ghost. Because if he persuades you with his word, then when you try to persuade him, you're the word that's reverberating back to his mouth. God, so you're a reflection of the word that he's already spoken. Thank you, Holy Ghost. Meaning that you're persuading him with what he's already given you. Or put inside of you. So we can look up toward heaven and say, God, I know you know all. And I know that you are all. You all of that and then some. You started the cosmos, flung the stars in the sky, set the sun to shine. You're wonderful, you're awesome, you're great and mighty, you're sovereign God, but I'm your child. And like Whitehead and David, I say to you, I need you to hurry up. The Greeks called you the unmoved mover, but I have learned that you are the persuader who can be persuaded. And I need you to hurry up, because if you don't move right now, I think my enemies might take me out. I can hear David. I can hear Whitehead. If you don't move right now, I think I'm going to lose what little bit left I have of my mind. If you don't move right now, I think I might sink under the pressures of life. If you don't move right now, I might lose hope that you can even move. God, I cannot go another step. I need you to make haste and move right now in my life. Is there anybody in this room, in these four walls, that needed God to do something immediately in your life, and you needed God to move right away? The truth be told, some of us can get our blessings for a Christmas bonus, and some of us can get our blessings from a tax check that's coming, but some of us can't wait for any of that. Matter of fact, I won't get a refund. I probably won't get a refund for the rest of my life, but I need God to move. I need more than what a refund can give me. I need more than what a bonus can give me. I need more than what an increase in my check can give me. I need God in my life to show up and to hurry up and to move right now. You and I have power to say, God, hurry up. Now let me parenthetically pause right here. You have the right to tell God, hurry up. But it does not mean that just because you tell God, hurry up, that God will hurry up. James says it like this, my brothers and sisters, count it all joy when you fall into various trials, knowing that the testing of your faith produces patience. Look at somebody and say, he's producing something in me. We are hard pressed on every side, yet not crushed. We are perplexed, but not in despair. Persecuted, but not forsaken. Struck down, but not destroyed. Preach, boy. And Isaiah says, has you weary, and young men shall utterly fall. But he is your caveat. But they that wait on the Lord shall renew their strength. Look at it. They shall mount up with wings as eagles. They shall run and not get weary. They shall walk and not faint. Tap your neighbor and say, neighbor, you ought to be flying or you ought to be running. Out of mind. You can tell him hurry up, but it does not necessarily mean that God will. There are times when the unmoved mover can be moved. The Psalms are complete. The chapters, the episodes, where various individuals told God, hurry up. If you look at Psalms 38, it says, do not forsake me, O Lord. O my God, do not be far from me. You look at Psalm 40. Please save me, Lord. Come quickly, Lord. Help me. Throughout the Bible, you will find biblical characters in precarious situations where they needed God to hurry up. And in this psalm, David has found himself in a position dealing with his own son who was committing treason and trying to take his authority. He was trying to become king. David was fearful that his own son would try to take his life and then take his empire before his time. It looks like he wants to take over before his time and even before God has deemed it right. And so David looks towards heaven and he says, God, make haste. Can't wait, God. Hurry up. This is not unique to David because the hymnologist wrote, and we sing it, I need thee. Not every week, not every month, not once a year, but I need thee every hour. I need thee every hour. Oh, bless me, my Savior, I come to thee. I had to ask David, how in the world did you find enough strength to tell God, hurry up? I know we have some linguistics in the room that say, he did not say hurry up. He said make haste. Well, that is the 16th century Elizabethan English. If David was living now, he would not be walking around saying make haste. But I want you to know he would probably tell God, hurry up. And I've studied and I've prayed, tell God, hurry up, is required, but you have to have some prerequisites in order to tell God to hurry up. Let me break it down for you. Everybody can't tell God, hurry up. Only a few people who meet the qualifications. You have been a card-carrying member can tell God to hurry up. Telling God to hurry up is a conditional opportunity. You have to meet the conditions and the requirements. There are some obligations in order for you to be able to tell God, hurry up. You have to go through a process for my Greek folk and not paper. God, it's a process. So I asked David, what are you doing? What did you do? What are the prerequisites? He says that right there in the text. There are a few things that David pointed out if you want God to hurry up. First thing you have to do, the first qualification you must meet is when in trouble, you have to know the right one to call. This right there. In verse 1, he said, Lord, I cry unto thee. David cries to the Lord. And I encourage you that you better be careful the folk who you cry on, because they might cry out all in your business everywhere else. Make sure you cry unto the Lord. He said, I called on the right one. I called for the right one. He cries to the right one. But secondly, he says there must be supplications. That means there's got to be some action in your asking. or begging, something earnest or humbling or humble, you've got to ask earnestly. And sometimes you might have to repeat. Look in 41 and 1, he says, make haste unto me, give ear unto my voice when I cry unto thee. He makes a supplication. He repeats himself. David repeats his circumstance. He says, I need you to hear me. Make haste. Give your ear unto my voice. Then he said, prayers. David has to pray. Thirdly, not only just supplication, not only just dealing with the situation of the quality and knowing who to call, but thirdly, you have to be in prayer. He's repetitive in his prayer. He says, make haste unto me, give ear unto my voice when I cry unto thee. I cry unto thee. I cry unto thee, he starts out with, and he ends up, I cry out unto thee. He's repetitive in his cry. In the same verse, he says, I cry twice. He communicates with God, and it's repetitive, and it's consistent. He communicates with God, and it's something that he does regularly and often, and he repeats himself over and over again. He cries out to the Lord, and he's consistent when he cries over and over again. He cries out to the Lord, and he wants the Lord to know that he's going to stay consistent with his crying for him over and over again. He cries out to the Lord. He makes it repetitive. He makes it consistent because he wants the Lord to know that I'm not just crying out when I'm in need, but I'm crying out when I don't have a need because I want to cry to you because of who you are. He's repetitive in his prayer. He continues to cry. Listen, there must be a time when prayer is regular. That's the point I'm trying to get to you, Lord. This verse is meant to imply a regularly talk to the Lord should happen often. And since I regularly talk to God, this is what David says. Since we communicate often, I have the right to ask him to hurry up. Because there's a history of communication. Okay, all right. There's some of you that can walk into places and get what you need because you have a relationship with the person that's in that position. But if you don't have a relationship with somebody, or you're not bringing somebody's name to the table, then you have no connection to them. What are they going to do for you? But I stopped by to tell somebody, if you got great communication with God, that means you got pull with God. You can walk up to God and say, God, I need this. And God, if God doesn't respond to that, you got a name you can bring to the table. You just look at God and say, Jesus, Lord, have mercy. And then God will have to answer you. No prayer, no power. And how in the world are you going to persuade God if you have no power? You have to pray. Okay, and this has been a recurring theme in my sermons lately because prayer life that is strong makes a strong living life walking on earth. So he says in verse 2 of Psalm 141, let my prayer be set forth before thee as incense, and the lifting up of hands as an evening sacrifice. That special sacrifice of a gift or a tribute or evening time, it was the Vesper service. Lord, let the lifting up of my hands be pleasing unto you. That's what he's saying. I'm not burning incense. I do not have a turtle dove. I do not have a lamb. No frankincense. No gold, no myrrh. But what I do have, I give unto you. And that's the lifting up my hands in the sanctuary. Lord, I still need you to hurry up. The issue is still there. It's still crucial, but before you move, before you bring me provision, before you make a way, before you give me a job, before you hurry up and give me my healing, before you give me my breakthrough, before you give me my deliverance, what I'm going to do right now is go ahead and give you praise. When you ask God to hurry up, you do not need to wait until it shows up to lift up your hands. What you have to do is go ahead and lift up your hands before he sends your package. In between your prayer and its delivery, you ought to have a praise. In between your prayer and your package, you ought to give him praise. In between your prayer and your package, you ought to give him praise. I'll say it one more time. In between your prayer and your package, you ought to give him praise. So what do you do between your prayer and your answer? You lift up a praise and lift up your hands. I don't care if you don't have it yet, but my lifting up my hands says that I'm going to bless him anyway. Hallelujah, anyhow, because I know it's on the way. I'm going to my seat. Been watching basketball lately because the Pelicans are in the playoffs. I've been watching lately. And if you watch basketball like I do, the point guard will shoot if it's necessary. But the point guard job is to be the best ball handler on the team. He should be the best dribbler, the best passer. Out of all the players, he handles the ball the most. But his primary job is to facilitate scoring opportunities. Typically, the point guard is trying to get the ball to the forwards who play on the inside underneath the hoop. But if the forward is not open, there's a challenge in passing the ball on the inside. Come here, let me bless you. God is our point forward. And he says, I've got a delivery package for you, and I want to get it to you, but you got to get open. You got to get your hands up. You got to get ready to receive the ball. Somebody is underneath the hoop. You're in the inside of the court. You're right there. And he said, all you have to do is make a layup shot, but you got to get open to receive it. Somebody say today, I'm going to lift up my hands, and my hands are a sign that I'm open to receive the ball. I'm underneath the hoop. Lord, let me get it. Okay, all right, okay. There's a problem. Most of us don't have a sucker-free life. So we have some defenders. And every now and then, you got to do what basketball does called a push-off. Push them off so that you can get open to receive the ball. I don't know what defenders that you got blocking you from getting what God has for you, but somebody in here say, I'm pushing them off, good God, so I can get open, so I can make the goal, so I can reach the hoop. Is there anybody in here saying, I'm on the inside, but I'm trusting God to get the ball to me? I'm going to get myself open, so my hands are my surrender, so my hands are my sacrifice, my hands are showing, Lord, I'm ready, I'm available, I'm open to receive. Is there anybody in here that will declare today, Lord, I need you to hurry up because I'm underneath the hoop. There's a time clock. The time is counting down. We're almost about to lose our time, but I need to even up the score with the enemy, and I need you to throw me the ball. I'm getting ready to get my blessing. Can I get somebody in here to give God praise as a sign that you're open to receive what God has for you? And I can tell you, guess what? If he gets the ball to you, this time you're going to score, because this time you got more intelligence. This time you got more integrity. This time you got more courage. Somebody say have a relationship with him. I can tell him that. Yeah. I got an email that I've been sending up. He's been my pen pal for a long time. I can tell him to hurry up. We've been talking on the phone in the morning. We talk on the phone at noonday. We talk on the phone at night. I can tell him I got that kind of relationship. Look at your neighbor and say, do you have that kind of relationship? Tell him hurry up. It's critical. It's crucial. The clock is counting down. And I got to even up the score. Can't let the enemy win this time. I need you to hurry up. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. Everybody stand on your feet.